How could being last possibly be good? We've always been taught to go for first place. Second place is no good. That's just the runner-up. First place, that's it. So how could being last possibly be good if second place is not even good enough? Well, I will tell you how. Years back, when I was doing my music thing, I wanted to take it to another level and learn how to do audio engineering. So I looked around in the newspaper and I found this course that was teaching audio engineering. And it was perfect because it wasn't this long 2-year, 4-year college course. It was a short course somewhere between 3 and 6 months. And it was in Manhattan, and I figured this is perfect. I'm going to learn audio engineering. So not only am I going to be able to, be that lyricist, but I'm going to understand how to work the console and do production, X, Y, and Z. So I signed up for this course, and I walk into this place where it was being taught. It was a studio, but I didn't really pick up on what studio it was. And I remember the head of the program, on the first day of class, it was all these students were in the room, and he said, look around. He said, look at the faces to your left and look at the faces to your right. He said, the reason why I'm telling you this is because at the end of this course, more than half of these people will be gone. They will bow out. They will quit. Some of them just won't last. And you want to try to be one of the people who make it through this course because it's going to do great things in your life. So I heard it, I received it, and I was like, okay, that's my goal. So I achieved that part. I ended up making it to the end of that course, and I remember at the last class, there was probably only 5 to 7 students. We started with more than 20. There's probably 5 to 7 students left. So I made it to the end. But before I even got to the end, during the second week of courses in this audio engineering school, there was a digital class that was being taught. And some guy was teaching it, and behind him, there was this animated figure on a screen, and next to that screen, there was some waveforms, right? And at the end of class, once he said it was over, all the students jetted out. They left. And it was me and maybe 1 or 2 other people who kind of stayed after class to ask the instructor, hey, what are you guys working on? What's this animated figure and these sound waves? And he said, yeah, that's the sound for the animated figure. And there's a guy in here that works in here. He's been working on this show. And the other 2 students who were there with me, they eventually left, and I stayed. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. So that's when he starts talking, like that waveform there. And is that when he takes a break? And the instructor was like, yeah, you into this type of stuff? Like, you like this? And I was like, yeah, I think it's very cool. And he started to explain to me, well, working in post-production sound for television shows and cartoons make a lot more than music engineering. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah. And he said, it's much less hours. And I was like, seriously? He said, yeah, this is post-production sound is like more like 9 to 5, 9 to 6, versus music engineering. You can be there for 2 to 3 days, showerless, just working with some artists or getting ready to work with an artist that doesn't show up until 2 o'clock in the morning. So this was pretty appealing to me. So we stayed there and we spoke more about what was going on that screen with that animated figure and what is controlling when that figure moves and X, Y, and Z. The next day, I'm at home and I get a phone call from the head of the audio engineering program. And he says, Mr. Conrad? I'm like, yes. He says, you have done what no other student has done here in our program. And I was like, okay. He said, the owner of the recording studio wants to hire you, and he wants to hire you today. And I was like, wow, that's great. Who's the owner of the recording studio? He said, the guy who was teaching the class, your digital class yesterday, is part owner of Soundtrack Studio. And I was like, wow. So there again, I was the last one to leave that classroom. And again, we're taught being last is not a good thing. But in this situation, it was great. And it led to so many other great things in my life. So I got hired the next day after that digital class while I'm still taking courses in this audio engineering program. And I went on to work on big projects, and I was granted access to a room that had millions of dollars worth of equipment. Now, because I was just beginning in this field, I think they were paying me $12.50 an hour. So, cool for me. I have a job, and I'm in this $1 million room, and I'm working on HBO projects. I worked on the first South Park commercial. I worked with Rosie Perez, and I worked with all these amazing actors. Will Ferrell. I worked with all these people, and worked on these great projects. So I was very blessed, because I was the last one to leave that classroom because I was hungry enough. So while I'm working in this field, I learned from a colleague, in this field, he was telling me, audio engineers that are doing what we're doing for television commercials and working on these projects for HBO and all this stuff, they make about $100,000 a year, at least. And I was like, wow, are you serious? I was like, man, I can't wait. I'm just going to keep going. And he said, you already have the skills. Everything that you do here, I mean, and at any other studio in town, you'd be making probably $100,000 a year. And I was like, are you sure? He said, yes, I'm sure. I've been in this industry a while. So I told my supervisor about this conversation I had, and of course he was like, don't believe what that guy was telling you, it's not true. I decided to put some feelers out. I put together my resume with all these projects I was working on, and all these people I was working with, and I started to interview. Well, I got to this one interview, and in the interview they asked me, so we love your work and we're very interested in bringing you on. What do you think would be a good starting salary? And I got nervous, and I just did what I was told. So I said maybe 100. And they were like, okay, that. Let us think about that, and then we'll get back to you. And my heart was beating so fast. I've never uttered those words before, that type of money before. So I left, and I was pretty much thinking, there's no way they're calling me back, because that's outrageous. Like, who would ask for that? So whatever. I'm just going to keep interviewing. I got a call back, and they said, we're very interested in you, and we'd like to know if you'd be okay with starting at $90,000 a year. And I just tried to stay calm and not do cartwheels and scream for joy. And I was like, well, I think that's something I can do just to start. And there you have it. That was the next level of a very prestigious career for me, because in the beginning, I was one of the last people to finish that audio engineering course. I stayed the course, and I was the last person to leave that classroom after that digital class was taught. And being the last person in that classroom, I happened to be talking to the owner of the whole studio. And I didn't know that. I just was hungry, and I didn't care who left. I didn't feel like going to hang out. I was zeroed in and focused on my craft. And that was my ticket into a very prestigious career, and my introduction into how you can triple your salary in a very short time. So being last is not necessarily a bad thing.